Red Pill Relationships, number 29. Parental Alienation, a Trap for Men. Welcome, everyone, to Red Pill Relationships. I think this is 29, Paul.
29.
And I'm Tom Golden here with Paul Elam. And we're going to talk today about parental alienation. But before we do, every fifth, sixth, seventh video that we do for Red Pill Relationships, we send out to the public to let people know what we're up to hope to let people know what we've got. And we've got a lot, Paul. We've done 29 of these, of trying to help men use red pill wisdom in blue pill relationships. We'll put up the list of what we've done on there so you can see. And it's quite a list, and we'd love to have you join us. It takes very little to get involved, as little as $1 a month. You can cap your membership at $1 a month and get a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you can go in right now and put it at $1 a month and get access to the full 29 video series.
Yes.
Watch it all.
And then if you wanted to, you could quit after a month.
Yes, you can. You can quit after a month, having watched the whole thing. We don't
There you go.
care.
Yeah, indeed. But we've developed a good community. I think we're up to almost 100 now between Patreon and Subscribestar.
Yep.
And we'd love to have you join us. And with that said, parental alienation, Paul.
Yes.
It's quite a topic. It's quite a topic, and one that is really, really hard for men. Really hard. And
there's hardly any way to fight it.
Well, yeah, exactly. And it started with Gardner, a child psychiatrist back in 1985, put out this idea about this thing called parental alienation. And he was quickly rejected by the psychological community. And I think one of the reasons for his quick rejection was that he basically said, this is mostly mothers. This is mostly mothers. That's what Gardner said to begin with. And, of course, it turns out now I think he was right. It's not all mothers, but it's mostly mothers. And why is that, Paul? It's because, A, the custodial parent has the most power over those kids. You can't alienate your children if you're a weekend parent, And also, the other thing is, Paul, that parental alienation is totally relational aggression. That's basically all it is. And who's better at that, men or women? Duh.
Who's trained for it?
Exactly. I mean, the women basically are much more trained and much more able to use that kind of manipulation technique, whereas men will tend to be more physical and overt.
And direct.
Yeah, and direct. So, I mean, there's a bunch of reasons why this is the way it is.
Oh, and also there's the factor of gynocentrism here.
Oh boy, that's it. You can't blame women for anything, Paul.
You can't point the finger at women. So If you've got an alienating mother who is turning the children against the father, making them hate him, if the guy steps up and says something, society will say he's wrong.
Yep, the bastard. He hates
How
his
dare
wife.
you talk about those children's mother?
That's right.
What kind of man are you?
And you kind of described it, Paul, but we should really start off by saying what it is. And parental alienation is basically when one parent tries to convince the children that the other parent should be rejected and thrown out, basically. And they go through all kinds of rigmarole to make that happen. It also comes in all shapes and sizes. It can be really mild parental alienation, or it can be really strong, which is what we're going to talk about today. The stronger types, which are just heartbreaking. Because as Paul said before, there's almost no way to really navigate this for men whose children have been alienated.
Now, there are some things you can and should do, and we're going to get into that, I promise you, but we got to acknowledge that first, the difficulty there is when you're the non-custodial parent, when you have the kids for not even enough time to really have that much influence in their lives. The courts have taken the authority of the father out of the picture.
Right.
So he has no authority to combat this. And if he does, people will point the finger at him and say he's the problem. It's very, very difficult to fight. It's also very important to fight. And we're going to talk about how you do it. One of the first things I wanted to get into, Tom, though, is some stuff I picked up on a website called Psych Law. And their tagline is blending science and law. If they were feminist, it would be blending pseudoscience and law.
Oh, blending. I thought you said bending.
Blending, yes.
Yeah.
blending. No, the feminist version would be bending.
That's just what I was thinking, Paul.
Breaking.
Bend and
One of the
breaking.
things they point out, Tom, and I think is real important, is that in assessing or diagnosing parental alienation, you don't do it on the behavior of the mother.
Right.
You evaluate it by the behavior of the child.
Correct.
The child is the only really reliable source that can tell you whether or not alienation is happening. Because a mother, some children, for some reason, seem to be immune to it. Mothers will try to turn them against the father, and the kid says, "Fuck that."
Yep.
You know,
Yep.
fuck you.
Yep.
I'm not going to turn against my dad. That's a minority of children, but it does happen. So it's important to know first, you do it by the behavior of the child. And
what do you look for?
A few items to look out for here in your child's behavior is that they often present complaints in a litany, some trivial, many false or irrational. If the child is saying, "You don't care about me, you know, you didn't spend money on me because you have a new girlfriend," you know, one irrational complaint after another that sounds like it might have come from some other source.
Yes.
Boom, there's an area to look at diagnosis. The child often denies ever having experienced good times with the target parent when that is clearly not the case.
Right.
You're always a jerk. You're always an a-hole. Whose language might that actually more sound like versus a child? It could be an ex. Part two of this is frivolous rationalizations for the child's criticism of the target parent. The child's reactions of hatred or disdain are unjustified and disproportionate to the circumstances they've described.
Yeah.
Sounds just like an arguing spouse.
Yeah.
They may claim to be fearful, but they do so easily and without typical fear reactions.
Right.
And that, again, is more sign of programming. I'm afraid of you. You bastard.
Yes.
Yeah, children that are actually afraid of a parent, don't tell them they're afraid in most cases.
Yes. Yeah. In fact, the therapists. You go ahead. Go ahead. You had more on your list.
I just want to run down this list and just take a couple of minutes. Lack of ambivalence is another part. The child manifests all or none thinking, idealizing the alienating parent, and devaluating the target parent. That, of course, sounds like bomb two. Reflexive support of the alienating parent against the target parent. The child immediately and automatically takes the alienating parent's side in a disagreement.
No matter what.
No matter what. So, you know, your ex says, "You started the Chicago fire." And the kid says, "Yeah, you started the Chicago fire." And it makes no sense at all. Completely no sense.
Yep.
That's how it goes. Here's an important one: borrowed scenarios. The child makes rehearsed statements that are identical to those made by the alienating parent.
Yeah.
Remember Elian Gonzalez? And the little kid, they were going in a tug of war about sending him back to Cuba with his father, and the family putting on camera, and he was shaking his finger at the father, lecturing him. You could just see the pull cord in the back of his neck.
It's true.
And that was alienating.
Yep.
Younger siblings may mimic what they've heard older siblings say. And a lot of times the alienating parent will target the oldest child. Because if you get the oldest child to get on board with you, it's a lot easier for the other siblings to fall in line. These children are usually unable to elaborate on the details of the events they allege.
Yes.
They
Thin and hollow.
Just know you did something wrong.
Right. You're the bad guy.
Two more quick ones here. Expressed feelings and hatred often include the extended family or friends of the target parent. Right. Even when the child had little or no contact with them.
Yes.
The child is expressing your ex's disdain.
Even their pets.
Yes, even their pets.
It's true.
Occasionally, the child's hatred extends to pets of the target parent.
There you go.
That's the final say on there. So what
Yes.
you're saying is that when you see the child start to emulate the behavior that the mother had, or excuse me, the alienating parent had during the final days of the marriage when things were breaking down, and then you see the child start to emulate all the mother's arguments,
Yep, that's a tip off.
open and shut case.
The other thing, Paul, is from a therapeutic point of view, there's a man named Rick Warshak who's written on this. He wrote a book called Divorce Poison, and Rick really has done a lot of work on this. Here's one of his quotes. Severely alienated children treat the rejected parent with extreme hostility, disobedience, defiance, and withdrawal. No shame or guilt over mistreatment. Interesting. And he contrasts that with how abused children treat the abusive parent, which is what? You know, they'll stay away from them.
Absolutely.
They'll avoid them. Yes. Yeah, because I don't want to be abused. I'm going to stay away. So it's extremely different. You can see it clearly, you know, that there's this hostility and mistreatment that's there that's not there with abused kids, you know?
And we're using this term in context, abused. Parental alienation is abuse.
Yes.
It is absolute child abuse. There is no
Yes.
doubt about it. And it's an extreme form
Yes.
of child abuse. It's
Yes.
a horrific form.
Yeah, actually, I meant physical abuse was what I was talking about and thinking about.
Yeah, I'm
Someone who's
sure.
been literally physically beaten, you know, those kids will avoid like the plague, you know, the abused.
Absolutely. And even if the abuse, other forms of or kinds of abuse are psychological, they'll demonstrate the same avoidance. But when you have an alienating mother, you'll often see the bonding between that child and the mother increase,
Yes.
because she's pulled them into an alliance and she's manipulating them like pawns to
Yes.
do her bidding and rewarding them with approval and affection for hating the father.
Yes.
That is, man, when you think about the importance of fathers in the lives of children and the impact of basically extracting a parent from a child's life and cutting off that bond, that's big stuff, man. It's huge. And the courts enable this
I
stuff
know, and have been enabling
for a
this
long
stuff.
time. It's
Yeah.
amazing.
It's sad.
And of
It's
course,
really
if
sad.
a guy misses a child support payment, that's no good. You're
Bad
not being a
man.
good father. We've got to lock you up.
Yep.
But
It's
man,
a very, very tough road that alienated parents face. And their biggest enemy is their own discouragement and their just sense of hopelessness, you know, because it feels like they can do nothing in the face of this. Because everything they try and do doesn't work, you know? Oh man, it's tough. And the problem is this can go on for years. You know, it's not a short-term kind of thing. This is something that goes on for years.
yes, it can go on for years, and you can have for years, unfortunately, and Tom, I've seen this a number of times, year after year after year, an alienated father trying in vain to overcome the problems that the mother's creating, trying in vain to maintain a loving attachment to their children, and it's just not happening. And
Right.
they get pushed back and rebuked over and over and over again and rejected by the child, because the child's allegiance at this point is to the mother. And they
By
feel
necessity. They
Yes.
feel like they have to.
exactly.
Oh,
That is an important point, that the child is risking, they've already in a way lost the father because the courts removed dad,
Right.
the visitation agreement makes dad a visitor in the child's life. What happens if the mother rejects him?
Yeah.
What kind of loss is that for
They're
them?
complete toast. Yeah.
It's almost like an emotional psychological death when both parents are gone. That's what goes on in the mind of a child. And
Yeah.
so they're up against, okay, I either attack my father, who's already largely gone,
Right.
and I side with my mother, or the only support I have is my dad. I see him every other weekend, and I'm with a mother who's rejected me and is now punishing me for not doing her bidding against the
Yes.
father.
Yes.
Why it's really important not to blame the kids for this going on.
Precisely.
You
Precisely.
You can hold them to account for their behavior, but it's critical to not blame them for the abuse of the mother.
Yes. Know the enemy, and the enemy is not your children.
Absolutely right.
Even though it damn well feels like it, because they treat you so poorly. Oh, it's frustrating.
And in some ways, I mean, they've been used so effectively as a weapon that they can be considered an enemy, but you can't react to them
Right, exactly.
like an enemy. But let's talk for a minute, Tom, about what you can do. I mean, we've acknowledged there's a lot you can't do.
And there is a bit of good news here. And the good news is that kids in general want a relationship with both parents.
Yes, they do.
That they start from a point of loving both parents, and something happens, and there's still a part of that child that wants a relationship with you. It's hidden, it's basically submerged, but it's there probably, and you can tap into that. That's what we want to talk about, is how do you tap into that? What do you think, Paul?
Well, I think one thing you do, even though it's very difficult, is you tell the truth.
Yes.
When a child says to you, Mom said you didn't pay for this or that because you have a new girlfriend and you don't love us anymore, which is what these children are being told.
Yes.
In words. Now, there is a lot of people, a lot of therapists out there, go figure, a lot of them are feminist trained, that will tell you, never, ever call the mother a liar, never, ever point out that she's wrong. That's bullshit.
That is bullshit.
Absolute bullshit. If your kids are old enough to articulate the sentence that you didn't buy something because you love your new girlfriend more than you love us, and you know that stuff has come from the mother, you can sit that child down and say, that is not true.
Correct.
That is totally false, and demonstrate to them why.
Yes.
And if it's the mother's responsibility to deal with her lies. And it is important for you to do this because one parent has to be the adult in the room. One parent has to stand up for the truth and speak the truth to the child. And again, this may not work by however we define the notion of work. But here's another thing, Tom, is that down the road, what happens a lot of times, kids get older. They get savvy enough to figure out stuff that they didn't quite understand as kids, and maybe start putting the pieces of the puzzle together, and they figure out, well, all that stuff my mom told me, that isn't necessarily true. There's a lot of this that doesn't make sense, and they may go back and seek to reconnect. They may not, because unfortunately, tons and tons of alienating mothers are very successful at getting the children to hate the father for a lifetime.
Yes.
And that's a sad reality.
It is a sad reality. And I've heard stories of the alienated parent dies, and that's when the child wakes up. You go, oh, crap.
Yep.
It's just so sad. So wake up before then, guys. If you're an alienated child, figure out what's going on, I
think that's a great thing to say directly to the children of alienating families, where the mother or the father, I don't care, where one of the parents has been alienating. If you're thinking that the stuff you were told as a child doesn't add up about your father, check it out.
Yes.
Go find it. But whatever men do, Tom, I think the worst thing they can possibly do is enable the mother to continue the lies because, I don't want to say anything bad about their mother.
Correct. You've got to, and the question, Paul, is you got to ask yourself this: is my telling my child this going to help them? Or is this something that's bullshit that doesn't need to be said? For instance, that's Catholic family, right? And the mother had an abortion when she was 22. I mean, telling the kids about the mother's abortion obviously is not going to help the kids. It's not going to help them at all. But telling them, no, that message is incorrect. Actually, I love you so much. In fact, I miss you so much. That is telling the truth. That's telling the truth, and get that out there. And that's going to help your kids in the long run, for them to know your truth, what's happening inside you. But Paul, the other piece of this is you've got to do it in a way that's calm. Because here's the real rub, man. She's doing everything in the book to piss you off and to get you so upset that you're going to spit nails and you're going to throw things and you're going to get pissed off and you're going to hit people. You can't let that get you. You've got to stay calm, because as soon as you spit nails, she's going to say, see, I told you. I told you.
Even more, the kid may say, oh,
yes.
wow, what mom
was right.
Too.
Mom was right. He's a real prick. So this is really one of the most difficult things, because on the one hand, you're being disrespected, you're being treated like a piece of dung, and what do you get? You get all this crap, and you've got to stay calm. It's really almost impossible.
The answer to alienation is not more alienation.
Exactly.
You find yourself trying to get the child to have a bad opinion of the mother. If that becomes your agenda, then you're off base.
You're on the wrong route.
But it is perfectly rational and reasonable to sit down. If the child says, Mom told me this, and you know that what she told them is a lie, is untrue, to look your child in the eye and calmly say, that's not true. What your mother told you is untrue.
Exactly.
And let them sort it out with mom. But spell out the truth, do it just like Tom said, do it rationally, calmly, in a loving way. That could be possibly for some fathers and children could be a very intimate moment where the father puts their arm around the child and says, look, this just isn't true. And you know it. If you think about it, you know it. You know I love you. You know I've always been there for you. I'm still here for you. So you really know that this isn't true.
I've loved you since you were that big.
Yes. And that again, you're not in a great position with this no matter what, because you're up against forces that are a lot more powerful than you.
Yes.
But this is all you can do.
Yes.
You can't fight tooth and scrap and nail, because it brings the kid into that situation.
And you may get a negative response to this calm, loving response. And that's okay. Try not to let that get you, because these things do accumulate. The more you can say in a calm way, I love you so much. I miss you. I want you to be a part of my life. The more you can say that calmly and easily over and over and over again, the message starts to sink in. We know that from alienated children who come back and tell us, that a part of their brainwashing was slowly eroded when the dad was able to slowly and calmly say, that's not true. I love you. Remember the time we went to such and such? We had a really good time. We've had so many good times. You just keep saying those things over and over again. And even though the kids may respond, oh, they're taking it in. They're listening. They're getting it. And it has a drip effect, over and over again. You say the same things. And it's like we said to begin with, Paul, hopeless and discouragement are the two biggest factors here, because every time you do that, you do it 1,000 times and you still get nothing. You think this will never work. I give up. I'm just going to go in there and punch the bitch. That's what she wants. That's what she wants. Don't give her what she wants.
She is craving that.
Yes.
It is what she wants. Would be her ultimate wet dream of success in this whole picture, is to get you to act out.
Yep, that's right. That proves I'm right. See what your father is.
There's another side of this that's honestly even more depressing.
Uh-oh.
And that is sometimes, one of the symptoms of this that they didn't point out in the psych law site is that a child will come home and be incredibly disrespectful to the father, and start emulating the mother's abusive treatment toward him.
Correct.
And abusive treatment toward any women in his life, any other extended family. The child on this little jihad on behalf of mom may start acting out disrespectfully and abusively toward the parent.
Yes.
You're not to tolerate that. Do not tolerate abuse from a child.
Right.
And I've seen a lot of men come down to the wire where they've either had to say, you either get with the program and we have mutual respect here, or you're going to have to keep your distance, because you cannot have an abusive child come into the home and start practicing the mother's will on a new relationship and everything else, and they're trying to disrupt, trying to break things up. It is important to have boundaries with your children. Jordan Peterson said once, and I really believe this is one of the areas that Peterson really got things right. He says, never let your kids grow up to be people that you don't like. And it's real important. He says, because if you don't like them, first, if you can own that it's possible for you to dislike your own children, which it is.
Yes.
If you can own that you don't like them, you're going to realize if you don't like them, a lot of other people are not going to like them too. A very isolating thing for them in life, and a very dysfunctional thing for them.
And that means you got to set limits.
You have to.
In this house, here's how we treat people.
Yep.
And you set that limit. Here's how we treat, not like that. You're not going to get away with that in this house. Here's how we treat people in this house. We try and give respect and la, 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 la. I mean, but lay it out in a calm way and say, here's what we expect. If you don't do that, we're going to have trouble. You got to lay the limit. You got to put it down. That's what dads do best, Paul. I mean, fathers are really good at this.
And I've seen this happen between men and their adult children.
Yes.
Fully grown children still acting out as a little trooper on behalf of the mom, going after the dad, trying to make him feel small and stupid and useless and pointless. I mean, and the impact on the men of their own children being the source of this kind of treatment is devastating.
Yeah.
And it's real important for you to role model for them. If they've grown up to be an asshole, which is what the mother has prescribed for them, then you need to assert boundaries as you would with any other asshole.
Yes. Well, not any other, but as you would with your child.
Pretty close. I mean, I think it's fair to say that it's healthy behavior to have the standard, for instance, in your home. I welcome different people into my home at times. If anybody comes in my home and disrespects me, they're getting the fuck out. That's all there is to it.
Yeah.
And you're welcome. If your adult child is being abusive and calling you a loser and saying everything mom said about you is true, you're welcome to accept that behavior in your own home if you want to. I don't think it's personally very wise.
Right. But if you kick them out, you're doing exactly what she wants.
Well, there's a dilemma.
It is a dilemma. And that's why it's good to set limits in a way that are reasonable and rational. It doesn't mean you have to kick them out.
You don't get to that decision.
Exactly.
But
it may get to that. I mean, it's possible. But if you do that, just understand you're playing into what she wants.
The reality is, though, that men do come up against that decision.
Yes.
And because also what she wants is for you to sit there and accept the abuse.
Yes.
She gets what she's wanting no matter what you do.
Yes.
So to me, the question is living by your values and role modeling that for your children.
Yes.
And explaining to them, if you did have to ask an adult child to leave, to say, here's the deal. I want a relationship with you, but it can't be like this. It's got to be, there's got to be respect involved.
Yes.
And so I'm a firm believer, you don't suddenly just not have boundaries because it's your kids.
No, you got to have your own boundaries. And fathers are good at setting the limits. You got to set the limits and say, here's the way we do it here. And I would frame it in a positive term. Here's the way we do things. Not we don't do that. Say we do like this. Sometimes kids have an easier time with that, when it's framed in a positive manner.
Well, I was thinking more of the adult children because this stuff tends to go on. Yes, it is much more important to be more positive, but I don't know. We may have a slight difference of opinion on this one. I really think it's important for fathers to do whatever it takes to role model somebody with self-respect.
Yes, absolutely.
And people with self-respect don't sit there and act like a punching bag in their
life. No, absolutely not. I agree with you. We're not in disagreement there.
Okay.
Yeah.
but this
It's
is a
how you
nasty,
respond where we probably
nasty,
disagree.
probably don't disagree, but
Yeah, probably not.
not in any really substantive way. Uh, but this is a really, really messy,
It is tough.
full of emotional angst and other problems. And I mean, what happens in the family's one mother with a bad mouth, and
Yeah.
she'll have a son that will grow up, and you look at the way the solipsistic trend in millennials and Gen Xers these days. This is generations raised largely by single women, and
Lacking compassion.
they lack compassion, and they don't get the father's sense of empathy that fathers instill in children. They don't get any of that, and what they get is your father was a loser, and then every time mama's mad, you're just like your father.
Yes. And they get from the culture that men are oppressors and are the problem.
Yep.
So, I mean, it's like the guys out there, this is tough for you. You're in a no-win situation, so you've got to take a stance that is pretty radical in some ways, because you're
Every
really,
once in a while, guys will do really well with this and get a child on a corrected path. And then the child sometimes will set the mother straight by saying,
yes,
don't
yes,
trash talk dad around me.
yes. And
Uh,
most of the success stories I've heard, Paul, are from men who have learned to build positive experiences with their kids over time, not get into, you didn't apologize, you need to apologize, and you did this, and finger pointing, just building positive experiences and have those build up and build up. There's a guy, Warshak, we talked about him before. Here's a quote from him. I recommend that alienated parents do everything they can to convey to children that their door is open and that they will welcome the children back when the children change their minds and want to reconcile. No recriminations, no need to rehash the past, no demands for apologies or acknowledgement of wrongdoing. Accept the child back, show your love, let the healing occur gradually, and move forward with the relationship. And what he's saying here is the basis to a lot of negotiators. What they do is they start with the real easy stuff first, and then they move to the more difficult. You don't want to start with the I need an apology from you to begin with. Let that come a year or two after you've started to reconcile. Start with
if it ever comes.
yes. Start it. I think it will if you can slowly, create positive experiences between you and the child, and let them know that you do care, that you do love. I think that it's going to, over time, you have a good chance of breaking this.
And, I think what's important about what he's saying there is that I can hear in it that he's recognizing the child as abused, not as
Yes.
a perpetrator.
Right.
And
Exactly.
when they're children, that is critical. You've got to recognize that you're dealing with a wounded person from your divorce, from your
Yes.
breakup,
Yes.
whatever, who has had more abuse inflicted on them in the name of mom dealing with her shit about the marriage not working out.
Yep.
And what he's saying is, don't confuse that child with her.
Exactly.
The
Exactly.
child has been hurt by this. So you're not looking for an apology
Right.
from the child. To me, you're just not. What you're looking for is to try to de-escalate the situation and to, like Tom said, create good experiences, but also have an atmosphere of the truth between the
Yes.
father and the child.
Yes. Yes.
From which you don't need to retreat. You don't need to fight with your child about the truth. All you need to do is speak the truth
Yes.
in a way that's calm and rational and loving towards your child. If you're expecting them to apologize for following mom's orders, my guess is you're expecting the wrong thing
Yeah.
from them.
Yes. It's true. It's true.
It's the mother.
And,
If somebody who's going to apologize, it would be the alienating parent, but they don't matter.
Yeah, there you go. The other thing, Paul, that I found interesting is that a lot of times the alienation will break when the money runs out. When mom somehow loses money and is no longer to, feed them with the money, the children start to understand, wait a minute, mom's wrong, So that's one piece. And there's a number of different things that can happen. If they have a big argument with mom, that can sort of break things too. And
And
when they,
Will,
yes, and when they become psychologically independent, when they leave home, sometimes that's a time when it can break also, because her manipulation gets diluted a bit when they're not there all the time.
you'll also see that if you are the adult in the room, if you're the compassionate, thoughtful individual dealing with the child, that the effect of the alienation won't have the profound effect that she's looking for. She'll eventually escalate it to the point that even the child knows she's nuts.
Exactly. Precisely.
You've got to be really strategic with this at a time when, for most men, Tom, it's really hard.
Oh, it's horrible.
To be thoughtful and strategic when you're watching your relationship with your child get savaged by a woman who's lying and twisting. It's a gut-wrenching time for men. And so we know what we're saying is like a big ask on this.
Yes,
Stay
yes.
calm and resolute, but being the adult in the room will never fail you.
Yes.
I've never seen that hurt anyone.
And doing it calmly, which is hard, but it's a goal, to work towards, because it's almost impossible, man. When you get disrespected like this, it's like, the red flag goes up and boom, it's hard.
What's helpful with this sometimes, I think, is the model of transactional analysis. It does. You're dealing with a parent if you've got an adult. And this
Yes.
is where the mom is, or the mom is going to be acting like a parent. And you got three states: parent, adult, and child. And remember that the parent is not a positive state.
Right. Right.
The adult is the positive state. The parent is judgmental and critical and reactionary and often combative. The child is the same way. And then child and parent get into conflict this way. But when you're the adult in the room, you take the wind out of the sails of children and parents.
That's a good point, Paul. The mother, in this case, the rejecting parent, is actually bringing in the children as being pseudo parents.
Yep.
And then they, as a group, are rejecting the child, the father. That's a good
It's
connection
parental
there.
of children, which you do not want to do. You want
Parentification. Yes,
them
exactly.
childhood, which they deserve to have. Mothers that alienate their children rob children of their childhood.
Yes.
They turn them into it's an emotionally incestuous bond. They pull the children in, get the children to act out, rob them of childhood, rob them of the primary positive relationship in their lives, which is with their fathers. That's the relationship that has the most profound impact on all the psychosocial stress factors by which we measure the health and well-being of children.
Yes. And children feel robbed once they figure this out. Once they
have been.
They realize, holy crap, I've been robbed.
And if you're an alienating mother watching this, stop that shit.
Yeah, really.
Just stop it. What are you doing? Damaging your child's life.
I can't think
because you're a petty little vindictive person that wants him to suffer forever, ever because he disappointed you. So you'll use your children.
Paul, I think, we can see a lot of things as pathological, but this is just evil.
It's evil. You're right.
This is just evil. This is not pathological. I mean, it's obviously pathological, but it is evil. And we need to call it that, because that's what it is. Wanting your own child that you love to not care about the other parent who loves them, that's evil.
That's some qualified evil shit.
It really is, man.
And there ought to be extreme punishment for it.
Amen to that.
But alas, we live in a gynocentric world. Women can do anything, even abuse children, and the world whistles and looks the other way. We know it's up to the men to do something.
It's true.
Is not going to do something about this. It's a disgrace. It's a travesty. It mars so many families. This is not a small isolated problem. This is a culture-wide problem. that
Yes.
goes on all the time.
Yes.
Man, men, it's sad, but
It is
all
sad.
we can advise you to do is to stay calm, love your kids as much as possible, and plant the seeds so that down the road they might remember something you said,
Yes.
and that might start putting them on a path back to you. But
And find other red-pilled, alienated fathers who you can understand each other. I mean, there's nothing like it, man, to have some support from other people who understand you're being alienated. If you're alone with this, it's almost impossible. It'll drive you nuts. So
absolutely, and
find
it drives
other
men to
fathers.
suicide.
It really does, Paul. And I can understand why, man. This is so tough.
It is very tough. It's probably the toughest subject we'll ever tackle
Yeah, I agree.
because you're so limited about what you can do and how you can do it, because almost anything you do other than being absolutely perfect is feeding into the mother.
And the deck is stacked, man. The deck is stacked against you. And on that happy note,
On that happy note,
are we about finished?
I thank God we're finished.
I think so. And
This
guys,
is
come
a
on
stinker of a topic.
and come see us at Red Pill Relationships. You'll have a good time there. There's a lot of good material, and we'd love to see you there.
Let's close out with one more heartfelt thank you for all of our patrons,
Yes.
Subscribe Star supporters.
Yes.
We really appreciate the community that's being built there.
Yep.
And like to expand on it. So if you want to see more of these, there's like 29 total so far that we've done. If you want to see all of them, by all means, kick a buck in the can at one of those places, Patreon or Subscribe Star, and start watching. And we'd
Yeah.
love your feedback.
We'll leave links below.
Absolutely.
That's good. Are we finished?
We are finished.
Very good. Y'all take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.